My friends, it's all about choosing vulnerability. In 1969, the Rolling Stones released "You Can't Always Get What You Want." There are some who would theorize that while Qui-Gon Jinn was enjoying his famous meditation break mid-duel with Darth Maul on Naboo, he saw that the only way to restore balance to the Force was for he to perish and Anakin fall to the dark side, only then to be redeemed by his son decades later. The greatness of Qui-Gon Jinn lay in his acceptance of this. But we're not Qui-Gon Jinn. How are we to do that? How are we to become that accepting? Pardon. How could we apply this to our mindfulness and meditation? Consider, if you will, the corner of our autonomic nervous system known as the sympathetic nervous system. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which is ensconced or enfolded within the thoracic region of our spinal cord. That's the region that corresponds to our rib cage. It has evolved not for active concentration, but instead for us to merely notice, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. We're to notice whatever comes up, whether that which we notice is external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. But what are we to do with all this stuff? That brings us to our parasympathetic nervous system. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower region of our lower lumbar region of our spinal cord, as well as the tippy top of the cervical region. It is wired so that during each exhalation, we could physically relax and mentally release. Master these two phases of breathing. Master aligning your intention with these factory installed settings, and you'll feel whatever comes, let it come. Whatever stays, let it stay. Whatever goes, let it go. This is the path of peace. I do look forward to chanting and meditating with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent more than 8 hours a day, every day, studying, practicing the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism and Taoism so that you would not have to. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. What I like to do is to bookend the meditation. Meditation and mindfulness, or I should say enthusiastic mindfulness and meditation, comprise the 6th, 7th, and 8th folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. That's what I'm looking for. But what about the remaining 5 folds of the path? I like to refer to that through recitation just before and just after our mindfulness and meditation practice, so that we can sharpen our intention and align it with the Buddha's path. Our opening chant reminds us of right aspiration, right view, and right zeal, the second, first, and sixth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. So what follows is not a prayer to real or imagined entities, but rather just words that we use to train our intention. We're going to play with two versions. The first is rather literal. It's kind of like using training wheels. We're going to set it to a bookend chant. Join me, won't you? May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. Consider, if you will, these three nouns. Over the centuries, they earned the metaphoric nickname of the three wish-fulfilling jewels, not unlike Aladdin's lamp. For our final pre-meditation chant, we're going to play with the same ideas, but we're going to do so using verbiage that is more concise and more figurative. And we're going to set this to a bookend chant rather than a triplet chant. Together. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. So meditation and mindfulness, or meditation and mindfulness, no matter what you call them, whether you call it Satipassaddhi, Chan, Dhyana, Proto-Zen, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati Yoga, Dzogchen, Treksho, or Fred and Ethel. As children, the first bicycle we received most likely came with training wheels, which, although were clunky, actually got the job done. Similarly, we're going to begin this evening's practice of mindfulness and meditation with an equally clunky practice. During our inhalation, let us generate a vertical traction between our head and our tuchus, while silently and mentally reciting the 12 syllables, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. During our exhalation, let's physically relax while silently and mentally reciting an additional 12 syllables, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Together. Now let us remove the first of two metaphoric training wheels, reducing our silent recitations from 12 syllables per breath down to just 3. During our inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite, "Notice this," and during our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite, "Relaxing." By the way, if at any point during the remainder of this live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. I'll check for questions approximately once every 8 minutes or so. We come now, take 3. Now let's remove the second of two metaphoric training wheels, reducing our silent and mental recitations from 3 syllables per breath down to just 1. During our inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun "this," and during our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb "ease," which functions as a synonym of "relax." And now that we have reached cruising speed, together as a team, let us meditate as profoundly as Ahsoka Tano on Lothal. Aha, a question. Daniel wrote, Hey, precious Jedi. I have experienced PTSD, and sometimes it's hard to calm my body down in order to start the meditation practice. Are there ways of calming before formal practice? Thank you. You are utterly welcome. And I'm right there with you. I know I have had a shit ton of PTSD in my life. I'm right there with you. So here's the thing. There's a lot of misinformation floating around. None of that is your fault. Allow me an opportunity to dispel some of that for you. Every time we breathe in, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our sympathetic nervous system. That's just how we're wired, evolutionarily speaking. This sympathetic nervous system is not wired for concentration. It's actually wired to just notice, and to notice vulnerably, and passively, and viscerally, and randomly. Some of the things it could notice would be sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. Some of those sensations could be physical tension or physical agitation, like we're getting ready to run a race, or like there's a bear chasing us. We're also wired to perceive emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Upon this path of vulnerability, it is not our job to choose what to notice or to choose what to experience. Au contraire, the power of this practice is to be vulnerable to whatever the moment brings us, whether it is external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. Now, a really intelligent question is great. I've noticed this crap. What do I do with it? Simple. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system. It is already wired for physical relaxation and mental release. Now, those are certitudes. The variable is how much release occurs, how much relaxation occurs. So it's not our job to force the process. It is only the job of our 3-pound supercomputer between our ears to merely choose to cooperate with the process. And the way that our brain does that is by silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation and the monosyllabic verb ease during each exhalation. So once again, our goal is not to see how relaxed we can get. Our job is to cooperate with the inner workings of our autonomic nervous system, both the sympathetic aspect and the parasympathetic aspect. We're already wired to do it. And so meditation and mindfulness can be a journey of discovery into the heretofore forgotten circuitry, factory installed circuitry. You know how on our computers we have factory installed settings and we can restore those settings? That's what happens when we practice mindfulness and meditation. So one of the quirks of evolution is our brain is so big, it's sometimes out of sync with the autonomic nervous system. And this allows our brain to cooperate with it. Now, here's some good news and bad news. The good news is that as we do this, our perception increases. The bad news is that as we do this, our perception increases, which means when we have unpleasant sensations, we'll notice them even more. And when we have pleasurable sensations, we'll notice that even more. When we have unpleasant emotions, we'll remember that more. We'll perceive that more clearly, but also when we have pleasant emotions. And the same thing with memories and thoughts and intentions and the like. So we live in a yang-oriented world where the majority of people tend to think that being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel are a good thing. And capitalism seems to reward that, and governments around the world seem to reward that, and children are indoctrinated to be that way. But there is a minority of people, and there's a minority of teachers who are convinced that the opposite is superior, that it's better to be flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. So the price of this being laid back is vulnerability. Vulnerability to the pleasurable and the unpleasurable, the convenient and the inconvenient. So allow me to make it a little bit easier for you. Most of us have smartphones. And most smartphones that I'm aware of come with a built-in countdown timer. So if I was just starting out, what I would do is I would set myself a countdown timer for 5 minutes. And every 12 hours or so, I would sit as impeccably as I could, notice as vulnerably as possible, relax as completely as possible for just 5 minutes every 12 hours or so. After a week, you could bump that up by an additional 5 minutes. Progressing by 5 minutes a week, within less than 3 months, you could be meditating like a champ. It is my intention to broadcast a live stream every 12 hours on YouTube and to save my live streams on YouTube as well. So you're welcome to come to a live stream once every 12 hours. You're welcome to come to a pre-recorded live stream if our schedules aren't in sync. That's fine. But by committing to a gradual process, your body can surprise you. There is a phenomena you probably heard about in some commercials called neural plasticity, which is just a fancy way of saying our central nervous systems can evolve for bad and for good. Or I should say for ill and for good. And we can train ourselves to reacquaint ourselves with our factory installed wiring. So I know we have about a 20-second lag between me saying something and you typing something and clicking send. But please let me know if this makes sense to you. And if you have additional questions, let me know. I'll be happy to help. By the way, so I have a shit ton of brain damage, and I've spent years in speech therapy. And so when I'm in meditation and I give lessons, I kind of sound a little bit like an FM DJ. And if I sound that way, it's not me being insincere. It's just kind of like the overlapping Venn diagram between brain damage, speech therapy, and being blissed out. So, while I'm waiting for your response, let's continue meditating. I check for questions approximately once every 8 minutes. By the way, it's very common for people to be off-put by the idea of sitting straight for as little as 5 minutes. And while people are learning or developing the coordination to maintain some sort of a vertical traction between one's head and one's tush, it can take a week or two to condition the subtle muscles and the neural pathways that support it. So if it feels like it's a hella workout, that's okay. You'll be surprised how quickly your body and brain adapt. In the book, The Path of Enlightenment, the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet explains that every Lama is functionally their own sect. So every Lama approaches the teachings a little bit different. And as they evolve, their approach evolves too, hopefully. So if I'm not your cup of tea, if you feel like I'm somehow the Satan himself come to drag you to hell, and you decide to find another teacher, that's totally your prerogative. And I will not judge you or condemn you if you find me annoying and you want to find another teacher. If you think I'm not annoying and you enjoy my teachings, you're welcome to keep coming. And if you change your mind 16 times, that's fine as well. I'm here for you, not the other way around. So it's okay for you to be a little bit ruthless and to find a teacher whose explanations and style really feels useful for you, that feels effective for you. And please don't let anybody manipulate you or guilt you at all. Let me rephrase that. You can't control what someone does or says, clearly. You're not the all-being master of time, space, and dimension. But there are some people you can love from afar. And if someone is manipulative and foolish and cruel, you can still love them, but you can love them from a great distance. I get hate mail, and sometimes when some people send me like a hate mail on Reddit or something, I just don't read it. Um, I just don't find it to be terribly edifying to swallow the live hand grenade of a poison pen email. So similarly, if there are people who want to manipulate you and guilt you and bury you alive under a metric ton of should, then you don't have to listen to them. You don't have to hang out with them. You don't have to pay them no never mind. So Danielle, or is it Danielle? I'm not sure if it's the English pronunciation or the French pronunciation, but other way. If you find yourself in what some psychiatrists refer to as an activated state, where your PTSD is activated and you're highly agitated, then the 3-syllable version of this exercise, notice this, relaxing, is really useful, and you can recite it silently and mentally while briskly walking around your block. Now, if it's unsafe for you to do that because of weather or time of day, that's fine. As you sit in meditation, you can alternately tap your kneecaps or alternately tap your elbows. And this will help you to perform something akin to a neurological massage of your hippocampus that can help you to cope with the misfirings of PTSD. What is trauma? Trauma is your body treating a memory as a present moment. It's not psychological, it's physiological. When perceptions are stored through the hippocampus, they are put into long-term memory. When perceptions are not allowed entrance into the hippocampus, they are experienced as the present moment. That is not your fault. That is not a psychological problem. It's a psychological symptom of a physiological disorder. So asymmetric stimulation, tapping left then right kneecaps or left then right elbows, can help. If you, like me, struggle with arthritis, and that's really not advisable, then you can do the same thing with your eyes. You can, during your inhalation, you could open your right eye. During your exhalation, you could open your left eye, lids, I should say. And going back and forth in harmony with your inhalations and exhalations can help you to process a PTSD or a CPTSD activation or reactivation. Victim blaming is not okay. While shopping for teachers, make sure people treat you with respect and kindness and patience and playfulness. If someone's cruel to you or grumpy or cranky, keep looking, find a better teacher. So I see a note. I'll read that real quick. Daniel wrote, I appreciate you so much, and I love Qui-Gon Jinn. Oh, me too. I notice that when I'm able to relax and be kind to myself and my experience, it helps lessen the PTSD and anxiety. So sometimes it is a journey. Yes, it is. Well said. Hard to still sit still sometimes. Yes, it is. So rather than fight your energy, work with your energy. I'm not sure if you live at home or in an apartment building, but if you have access to a treadmill, when you feel antsy, you could do walking meditation, brisk walking meditation on a treadmill. It's a wonderful way to play with, for want of a better term, nervous energy. What I like to do is Buddha bowing. And so I'll perform variations of geriatric step back squat thrusts. It involves my whole body. So when I'm in an agitated state, instead of suppressing the agitation, I'm able to put it to work. And then I can sit down on the cushion for the remainder of the time I've set aside. And if that time is short, that's fine. You can only do what you do. And you don't need to beat yourself up. There's a wonderful line from the first Addams Family movie, where Morticia says to Gomez, do not torture yourself. That's my job. Similarly, we do not have to beat ourselves up. Why, thank you, and you are utterly welcome anytime you want. Come on down. Got a question? Just type it in one of the comment areas and it'll work its way to me eventually. Okay, so I use Jedi as a metaphor for spiritual training. It's one of my spiritual heroes is a dead Tibetan known as Karma Jigme Rinpoche, who taught that the ultimate morality is simply non-violence. 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertains to loving kindness, 25% towards wishing love, and 25% towards kind communication, 25% towards kind conduct, and 25% for kind commerce. All kind commerce means is not being a Karen and trying to get people fired, not trying to be a Chad and trying to drive people out of business, but instead be very gentle and loving. One of the many fringe benefits of a healthy practice of mindfulness and meditation is we experience the highest love, which is spontaneous and uncontrived. When our choices and our utterances and our deeds flow from this centered spontaneity, not scattered spontaneity, but centered spontaneity, then the right choice or the right utterance or the right deed just flows through us. Now, the test of a right deed or choice or utterance is not necessarily what people think of us. Sometimes we really can't tell until time has elapsed. Sometimes we need the perspective of time to see whether or not a choice was the best possible one. But if we use mindfulness and meditation to cultivate love's centered spontaneity, then everything else will work out great. And while we're on that subject, I think it would be a great opportunity to wrap up this practice with a bit of the old chanting. Let's remind ourselves of the third, fourth, and fifth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path by chanting the kind ethics together. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness flow spontaneous and uncontrived. And finally, let's use the four measurables to remind ourselves of right views and right intentions, first and second folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Together. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy, may no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 11 hours or so, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.